On July 26, 2021, Officer David Lance Dukes of the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety responded to a call regarding a man banging on a townhouse door, allegedly with a gun in his waistband. When he arrived on the scene, Officer Dukes immediately drew his gun and ordered 58-year-old disabled man Clarence Gaillard and his cousin Mario Julian, who were standing in the parking lot outside the townhouse, to the ground.
Hey, let me see your hands. Bert, get on the ground. Get on the ground. Get on the ground right here. Get on the ground. You, burgundy shirt, get on the ground. Over here. On the ground. On the ground. Get on the ground. Do you not?
Yeah, I didn't want to pause it so soon into it, but man, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine being in a situation like that. Oh man, you see, it looks like there's a wet spot over there on the ground next to his feet. That'd have probably been me, and it'd be a wet spot because I peed myself. That has to be, oh, wow.
Listen, get on the ground.
Mr. Gaillard attempts to comply with Officer Dukes' orders by getting onto his hands and knees, but Officer Dukes forcefully uses his foot to attempt to force Mr. Gaillard all the way to the ground, causing his head to violently hit the pavement. In the 1989 case of Graham versus Connor, the Supreme Court explained,
Where was the outrage for this? This is a riot that I could get behind. I mean, a protest. This is a protest that I can get behind. Are you? That was disgusting, man.
More recently, in the 2016 case of Armstrong versus Village of Pinehurst, the Fourth Circuit, which includes South Carolina, held that, quote, non-compliance with lawful orders justifies some use of force, but the level of justified force varies based on the risks posed by the resistance.
I'm pretty sure that there's probably like a cutout for people that are over the age of 60. Like, that was not done in the name of safety. That was done in the name of disrespect and disregard for people in general, much less the elderly.
Even purely passive
Disgusting.
resistance can support the use of some force, but the level of force an individual's resistance will support is dependent on the factual circumstances underlying that resistance. In this situation, the severity of the crime at issue was limited at best, although Officer Dukes claimed to believe that Mr. Gaillard had a gun at the beginning of the interaction. However, at the time Officer Dukes used force against Mr. Gaillard, it was clear that he did not pose an immediate threat, as he had raised both of his empty hands above his head before getting on his hands and knees. Finally, Mr. Gaillard was not resisting arrest in any way. In fact, he was attempting to comply with Officer Dukes' commands when the force was employed. Under these circumstances, it is highly likely that a court would conclude that Officer Dukes' use of force against Mr. Gaillard was neither justified nor reasonable.
Is there a gun back there?
Ain't no gun.
By that truck.
Ain't no gun.
You're not listening, dude.
That's sad, man. As old as he is, he probably has hearing problems too, man. That's just sad. I hope you're the one that lost your freaking job. You should be
You got a gun on you, man?
No, I ain't got
At the
no
least.
gun. I
I'm
don't
just
want
asking.
no gun. I don't
Turn
want
back over. Paul, do you watch him say? He had something.
I ain't want no gun.
The door's unlocked, it's not always so.
No, he was right here. Watch him. Go watch him. There it is.
even the way he's talking to the female officer. Even that.
All right, that's what he had.
Not a gun. Like you, like
All right,
you're
who's
happy you
complaining?
found something.
All right, get up. Get him up.
Put your leg up.
25 city got one tank.
And I'm just gonna say this: imagine if he had an older son in the house that was looking through the window and saw that and ran out there in that moment to go rectify that disrespect. We'd be talking about a whole different story right now, right? That really pisses me off. Just to see that clip of that officer is literally stomping that man. Not all officers are this way, but man, and I'm pretty sure the people in the force probably agrees with this statement. The ones that are not like this officer has to work 10 times harder to prove that they're not like that officer. So that's just
Put your leg that way so you
I'm
can stand
confused.
up.
All right, listen. I'm about to help you. Hold on. Hold on. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right.
Yep.
Listen.
Yep, they slammed my head
Listen.
down on the cement. Yep.
Go back inside. Go back in the house. Go back in the
Yeah.
house. Ain't nobody talking to you.
I got head trauma.
Go back in the house.
he's on his
Yeah.
porch. You don't tell me
Y'all
to go.
bust
Come
my
on.
head down.
How's that a lawful?
Yeah, I've been in an accident. Yep, y'all bust my head down. You throw me down.
I sure did. You
and-
wasn't listening.
Yeah. No, it ain't. You had to throw me down like that. I'm disability.
Okay.
I got head problem. Yep. You throw me down.
And
Yep.
the
You
arrogance.
throw me down. You throw me down. Yep. You bust my head
Arrogance to
down on
admit
the
it.
cement. Yep. You bust my head.
All right, let me tell you what happened.
His forehead.
You bust my head down on the cement.
He was in front of the car when I came up. And he was walking like this. And I thought it was a gun at first. I said, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun, drop the gun. I had him at gunpoint.
You
And
bust
he's over
my
here
head.
doing something like this.
You slammed my head. You slammed my
What
head
he was doing is
down
putting
in
this up behind the
cement.
tire. So he comes over right here. He got his hands in his pockets. I'm telling him, let me see your hands, let me see your hands, let me see
Why
your
you
hands.
bust my head then?
He wasn't listening.
No, it ain't.
Lies.
He got the, like this right
Lies.
here.
Slam me.
And we went on to the
And
ground.
you bust my head.
You guys
Officer
remember
Dukes
what-
claims that when Mr. Gaillard was walking from behind the white vehicle, he believed that he had a gun and repeatedly told him to drop it. Officer Dukes also alleges that once Mr. Gaillard stepped in front of the vehicle, he had his hands in his pockets and repeatedly ignored requests to show his hands. However, the body cam footage shows that Mr. Gaillard actually had his hands above his head, and that while Officer Dukes repeatedly screamed at Mr. Gaillard to get on the ground, he never asked him to drop a gun or show his hands, likely because Mr. Gaillard's hands were visible throughout the encounter. An incident report filed by Corporal Brandy Smith, who was also on the scene, states that while Mr. Gaillard was walking from the passenger side of the vehicle, he appeared to have his hands in his pockets, but that once he reached the front of the vehicle, he took his hands out of his pockets. Corporal Smith's report also states that Officer Dukes was giving loud verbal commands for Mr. Gaillard to get on the ground, but makes no mention of a gun or any commands to drop a gun or show his hands. It's also important to note that when Officer Dukes was reporting what happened, he did not explain the method he used to take Mr. Gaillard down.
Oh, yeah.
Corporal Smith's
I bet.
report claimed that when Mr. Gaillard did not get completely on the ground, Officer Dukes pushed him to the ground by placing his right foot on the middle of Mr. Gaillard's back. However, the
That's an-
incident report
I guess Mike Tyson could say every person he knocked out, he moved his fist swiftly towards their face. Man, you disgusting.
filed by Sergeant Aquel Polidor states that Officer Dukes, quote, jumped up and stomped Mr. Gaillard on the back of his neck with his foot, although it is
That's a
unclear
more
from the body
accurate
camera footage
description.
whether Officer Dukes' foot landed on Mr. Gaillard's
That is a lot more accurate description of what took place.
neck or upper
Stomp.
back. It is certain that the version of events Officer Dukes explained to his commanding officer did not align with the body camera footage or the reports filed by his colleagues.
Down
That's what
on the cement. You bust my
Yeah,
forehead.
your head did hit the cement.
Right, cause you bust me down on the cement.
Where's the complainant?
You bust my head down on the cement.
Right here?
You bust my head. You bust my head.
Where's the complainant?
Bust my head down.
I'm trying to get the name of the complainant.
You
So
bust my head.
What are we doing? I guess Sam was going to check him out.
Ain't nobody
There ain't nothing about here on the press charges on.
Who called?
I'm not sure.
Take him out of cuffs right now. I mean, because that's what we
You're gonna
got.
have to use your force.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
slam my head down.
Dude, I didn't know what his
You
intention
use
was.
the force. You need to have a look at the camera.
Alright.
The officer did wrong. Slam my head down. Bust my forehead. Damn right. You gonna pay me for that
Mayor, I'm going to take that into evidence of what he had.
What?
Well,
Thank you.
I mean,
For
his,
what?
you know, that's the reasons I did what I did.
no gun or nothing.
You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm
I
coming
ain't
from.
got no gun or nothing.
Because when he was behind the truck, I couldn't see what he was doing. And I didn't know where,
There ain't nothing there.
Where that went?
Those
If it was still in
are-
his pockets when he come around that car with his hands in his pockets.
These dogs officer.
Got it on camera. Here we
Yeah,
go.
a dog
Alright, that's
stick.
fine.
A dog stick.
Yeah.
So
Even
he
that
come out of
officer,
cuffs? Yeah.
that officer must be in charge, but you could tell he's tired of his crap too. You can tell he's tired of his crap too. He's like, man, get out of my face and let's get out of here. Because we both know you're about to lose your job and lose your badge and probably end up in jail. Disgrace. Making me look bad.
Yeah, he can come out.
Man, you better start praying.
You mind looking?
I guarantee they normally take
Good, how are
pictures like that for their protection.
Officer slammed me. My forehead down in the cement.
Okay.
In the wrong for that.
Any consciousness?
Yeah. Listen.
Can I get a card from you?
I don't have one now.
Okay,
We don't have
what's your badge
they don't
number?
give us cards.
Okay, what's your badge number?
1059.
Let me see if I can get my phone. Hold on.
Hold on, we have cards.
I get ready.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
Go to
you.
hospital?
When Mr. Julian asks Officer Dukes for a business card, Officer Dukes claims they are not issued cards by their department. However, Sergeant Poldador immediately corrects Officer Dukes, states that they do have cards, and provides Mr. Julian with the information he requested. If it was concluded that Officer Dukes intentionally lied to Mr. Julian in an attempt to avoid accountability for his actions, it is possible that he could be convicted of 2 common law crimes under South Carolina law: obstruction of justice and official misconduct. In the 1997 case
Carolina.
of State versus Lyles Gray, a court of appeals in South Carolina upheld convictions for both of these offenses against an officer in the Camden Police Department for her conduct during a criminal investigation. The court explained that, quote, under common law obstruction of justice, it is an offense to do any act which prevents, obstructs, impedes, or hinders the administration of justice, and that, quote, misconduct in office occurs when persons in public office fail to properly and faithfully discharge a duty imposed by law. In this situation, the court concluded that the officer obstructed justice and committed misconduct in office by failing to interview witnesses after her daughter was identified as a suspect, obtaining a false arrest warrant for another suspect, and withholding evidence. While Officer Dukes' lie about whether the department issues identification cards did not rise to the same level of misconduct, given the broad definition of both of these offenses, it is still possible that he could be convicted if charged. However, it is important to note that while some states legally require officers to provide ID to citizens upon request, South Carolina law does not place this obligation on officers. Additionally, many police departments have policies requiring that officers identify themselves, but the Orangeburg Department of Public Safety's policy is not publicly available, and it is unclear whether their policy adheres to any form of officer identification guidelines.
Yeah.
All right. Just call me.
Brandon, he can get his stuff off the car.
What's up with him just commanding around with other
Please say
female
that.
officers?
1059.
Okay.
After Mr. Gaillard was treated by EMS, he and Mr. Julian were allowed to leave. 2 days after the incident, Officer Dukes was fired from the Orangeburg
Oh,
Department
yeah.
of Public Safety for
What's
violating
next?
the department's use of force policies, which, as stated before, are not publicly available. On August 25, 2021, former Officer Dukes was charged with first-degree assault and battery, which could carry a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. As of the date of this episode, Mr. Gaillard is represented by an attorney, but he has not yet taken any legal action against Officer Dukes or the department. Overall, Former
needs to get
Orangeburg
paid.
officer Dukes gets an F for physically assaulting Mr. Gaillard for no apparent reason, blatantly lying about the nature of the interaction in his police report, and for making a concerted effort to avoid being held accountable for his ridiculous antics. At no point during this encounter was Mr. Dukes in any danger, and it is clear that his violent actions were motivated by his ego, not
Again, for the good officers out there, you have to work 10 times as hard just to make up for the crap that piece of crap does. You got to work that hard just to make it up. I could only imagine how many charges they would have hit that old man with if he fought back. Charges, he'd probably been dead, let's be honest. That's disgusting. And I guarantee you look through his record, this isn't the first time he's done something like this. This is probably just the first time he got caught on camera. And chances are, the camera that got him caught wasn't his own. It was most likely the other officer, because that's the angle that we got, that was running up behind him. Disgusting.
officer or civilian safety. There was absolutely no legitimate excuse for shoving Mr. Gaillard's face into the pavement when it was plainly obvious that he was attempting to surrender. And this is exactly the type of conduct that has sparked nationwide unrest regarding members of law enforcement.
Yep. Guys, I'm going to cut it short there. There's only probably about 2 more minutes left in the video. Like, again, there's so many videos that we do. It's like, let's go watch some cat videos after this. Like, this is just disgusting. Like, let's get his face off the screen. It's just, that's what he was doing. Hands up. Right? Guys, stay sharp out there. Comply. Just try to stay safe, guys. Brought you something that, again, I thought was a bit interesting. It was interesting. But man, does it hits you. It really does hit you, guys. I appreciate you kicking it with me for another video. I'll see you in the next one, all right? Peace.